Welcome to the Art of Becoming Whole, where we explore the edges of the human experience, from the therapy room to the meditation cushion, and of course, beyond. I'm Justin Tang. I'll be your host with the most.
I'm Kevin Stansbury, LCSW. Uh, I will be your host, maybe not with the most.
I'm not sure even what that means. It just came out of my mouth.
What's up, Justin?
It's a great question.
What's
Hmm.
alive and true for you today?
Yeah. What is alive and true? It is becoming aware of my higher self, expanded self, whatever you want to call it, source, spirit, infinite intelligence, and feeling like it's going to be okay.
When you say it, what do you mean?
I mean, life in general, right?
What makes you, I don't know if it's a thought or a sense, but what makes it true that it's going to be okay?
It's a good question. Perhaps it's more of a sense of hope or hopefulness, um, a a positive expectation. Um, yeah, it's just more of like a sense of who I really am. And obviously, I don't always remember, or I don't always act in accordance to that, right? But coming back and returning to it is helpful. I
So
don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know if I really want to. I mean, we could get into it. Uh,
I think I'm assuming it connects to the thing that you said you might want to talk about earlier in the week, uh, surrender.
Surrender.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, as I've said previously, the word surrender is very complicated. I find that surrender implies that that I'm wrong in some way.
Hmm.
So therefore, I need to surrender. Um, and I think sometimes that can be detrimental, right? Uh, there should be some kind of trust in yourself. Right. I think you said that the core of all programming is that you don't trust yourself. And so I think surrender can imply that you don't, that you have to trust in something other than yourself.
Hmm.
And I do think there's a time and place for that, right? We're not just independent beings, but we're also interdependent, right? That is, we don't rely on someone, but we're connected in a way that we understand that there's um, an exchange of value, exchange of trying to find the word, right? Or we are relying on each other as equals and understanding that we're part of a larger system of things. Um, so yeah, surrender can have a lot of complicated connotations, especially for my background from Christianity. But I will say that what it feels like to me is sort of a letting go. It's a feeling of letting go and a feeling of knowing that my higher self, right, my true nature, or you could say the subconscious mind, whatever it is, but the part that is probably not as conscious is working in the background and taking care of things.
Mm.
So surrender is probably the best word, but I don't necessarily like that. And I think the way this came about was I just felt like I'm just spending so much time and effort, which is great, spending effort in doing the inner work, um, and getting some results, right? But it felt like I'm expending a lot of effort. So why do that when I can just let my expanded self do it? Just you go for it. I don't really want to deal with this right now, type of thing. And I think it's yielded positive results in some ways, and I think in other ways, um, there's just a little bit more work to be done in certain areas. So I'm hopefully I'm being clear.
I think you are, but
Okay.
that last part though, you said that the uh it's yielded some positive results, but that there's still some work to be done in particular areas. What do you mean? Like work that allows you to let go more, or
Yeah. Yeah, I would say work that allows me to relate to things in a much more positive light. So, for example, it does feel like in terms of career, I've been letting go more and it's yielded positive results, right? I think like I can see a path forward. And I think there's good things happening. Um, but say like something like dating, I feel like I have a lot more stories to kind of work through, and that's been a little bit more difficult and maybe some more layers, right? A little bit more complex. And so um that might need a little more work.
Hmm, got it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the the baggage, if I can call it baggage from Christianity, around surrender, it sounds like there's some sort of association with sin, or like like you were saying that it's like there's something wrong with me, and so then I have to turn to something outside of me and
Yeah.
surrender to that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the heart of Christianity is that uh you are so bad and so untrustworthy. Like there's literally a verse that says the heart is deceitfully wicked, who can know it, who can trust it? And so the idea that your heart is just so sinful and enmity towards God and so anti-God apparently, that you have to surrender. But even if it's not that, like even if it's not like, oh, you're just so bad, it's just more so why do you need to surrender um if you trust yourself? Unless you're surrendering to trusting yourself, right? Because it implies that you don't. It implies there's something outside of you that knows better.
And so when you say surrender to trusting yourself,
Yeah.
which self are you talking about?
Right. And I think this is where it kind of gets confusing, right? Because semantics and things like that. Um, yeah, I mean, you could call it your higher self, your authentic self, expanded self, spirit, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, but it's still the idea that is me or my true nature.
Yeah. Okay. So it could be, I don't know if you would use this word, but it's like surrendering to the divine through you or as you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. The divine expression as me through me. Yeah.
The main point being it's not separate from you.
Right. Right.
So it's not like, oh, I'm so whatever. I'm so bad. I'm so just inherently low. You know, being human is like it's like you can't trust yourself. You can't trust being a human self. That then I have to really distrust myself and place all faith in this thing that's completely outside of me.
Hmm.
And so instead of that, it's that like maybe there are certain aspects of our humanness that we can be skeptical of or like
Sure.
curious about the validity of and all that our conditioning and stuff in the subconscious and whatnot. Um, but that there's a path there's a path inward that leads to connection to this source that's bigger than my humanness, but includes it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you put that. Yeah. It's bigger and yet it includes it. Right. Like our humanness is still important. Authenticity is still important. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
because you could easily throw the baby out with the bathwater, which a lot of not just Christians, but probably just a lot of people in general do. But that, yeah, it's just like throwing all of your humanness into the garbage. Like this fucking bullshit. Can't wait to be dead so I can just be in heaven because
Yeah.
that's when I'll be pure.
Yep.
Um, but that completely misses that God lives through me and and
Hmm.
and acts like my humanness is a vessel for communication from the divine. Where like this is how I see it, that my own human experience brings me closer to God
Hmm.
when I really lean into it. But that's hard for the mind to understand, I think, especially when we're suffering.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Sorry, I'm having like a weird moment where I'm not sure what I want to say. Uh, well, I actually let me ask you this. Why do you think why is it important to be close to God?
I don't know how to answer that, Justin. Uh, I mean, the first thing that came into my mind, I just was giggling internally, because I feel like uh, there's going to be no adequate answer to this question, but also that it's like saying, why is it important to be close to oxygen? You know, it's like because well,
Helps
it's
you live.
yeah, it's a little bit different, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like it's an inherent part of reality.
Hmm.
To me, it's like it's like, you know, being in touch with reality. So if I don't know exactly where my mind's going, but that like I have my feet on the earth and I'm walking down the street, and I know that I have my feet on the earth and I'm walking down the street, then I'm in touch with reality.
Hmm.
But if I have my feet on the earth and I'm walking down the street, but I think that I'm like flying, um, or something not representative of what's actually happening, then I'm, psychotic or delusional, or I'm separate from what's real. And so to me, it's just so inherently infused into everything that to deny it robs you of a clear seeing of what is. And okay, and now I'm getting maybe more into it in my own mind, that in in that clear seeing of what is, there's a discovery of the thread of divine wisdom, or the movement of divine wisdom that is in the manifestation of everything, that then I can get into the flow of. And that's so, why is it important to be close to God? Because of that.
Hmm.
Because either I am in the flow. I mean, it doesn't matter to me if people call it the flow of life or the flow of the universe or whatever, but I don't know. I'm just like, why not call it God? It's it's like this infinite thing that is beyond my comprehension, this infinite love, this infinite wisdom, completely beyond my comprehension. And uh everything is it, everything is arising from it. And if I'm in touch with that, then I can allow that to guide my life. I can be in the flow of life, in the flow of this divine wisdom, as opposed to fighting against it. And those are the only two options.
Hmm.
I would love, if you want to, for you to challenge me on that.
No, I guess I'm thinking of like, um, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a part of me that wants to resist for sure. I think of people who are non-spiritual, non-religious, or they're secular. And I do think they live fine lives. It they can live a very fulfilling life in the flow of life too. And they might not call it the divine, right? But um, do do you think that God wants the best for us?
Hmm. I mean, my initial answer wants to be yes,
Hmm.
but I feel like it's overly simplistic to just say that.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah.
Well,
It's like, okay, so, but the way you said that makes it sound like there is this God that's out there wanting something for me over here.
yeah.
And so that's maybe where it starts to get uh convoluted for me, is that, so I actually really like, where I first heard it was from Ken Wilber, where he would talk about the different types of relationship you can have with the divine.
Hmm.
First person, second person, third person. I think that's it. Maybe there was a fourth. I don't know what that would be. But So like first person would be the I am. It's like identified with it, like this is the mystical, the typical mystical teachings of God is me, or I am a manifestation of God, or whatever, and I can have a direct relationship through the I. Then there's second person, which is thou. I can have the relationship with you, God out there. And this could be like prayer or whatever. So there's me, and then there's you. And then third person might be like through nature or the universe or something. I think that was the third person one. Hold on one sec. My cats are killing each other.
Yeah.
So most religions, and I guess uh, the dogmatic interpretation of religions, they emphasize that second person relationship and completely deny first person for the most part, and third person, uh, mostly. And then like third person, I think that would be more in the realm of like animism or paganism, tribal practices, things of that nature. Also, maybe more new age stuff gets back into that too. And then first person would be more the mystical traditions. And to me, what I would say is that also at the core of every religion, even if it's not included in the dogma, but that it's potentially, I won't even say potentially, it's valuable. It's valuable to have all three types of relationship to the divine.
Yeah. I don't uh I don't always pray anymore. I used to, obviously, a lot. Um I guess my view on prayer has been uh changed. It's yeah, as I've grown, my idea of prayer has grown as well. But in terms of very traditional prayer, I don't find that I'm doing a whole lot of that. So the whole second person thing, oh, I feel like I've not that I've outgrown it, it's just like I've done that for so long, like I'm tired of it. Let's move on to something. Yeah. Um, yeah.
So I said all that because you were asking if I think that God wants the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah, yeah.
And
What is
so yeah, so I could do like a second person interpretation or a third person or first person. But generally, I guess what my belief is, my experience and belief, whatever, is that uh well, I always liked the line that I also got this from Ken Wilber, that the divine always orients toward greater truth, beauty, and goodness.
hmm.
That's just the general movement to more and more of that, more and more wholeness, more and more truth, beauty, goodness. And suffering, fear, murder, pain, all of that, maybe not pain, but those other ones are human creations. And that we are creators, like as I am made of the divine. It's, to me, it's not just like I have this divine spark in the middle of my humanness. It's like all of me is the divine. It's made from it. It is it. And and so that incredible creative energy is a part of every person. And so we have the capacity to create life in a particular way. And this is the world we've created.
What if we don't like our world?
Then we can change it. But, uh, there's probably a lot more nuance in this. Uh, but yeah, but generally, I think that that's true. I saw a reel this morning that it was rehashing this, like, to me it's like a stale conversation, but it's popular, of, if God is all loving, all knowing, all whatever, then why is there such horrendous suffering? And now that I say it out loud, maybe I don't think it's stale. I just think most of the perspectives that get shared are stale because you're either like basically on the dogmatic religious side of the argument, which tries to make excuses for the suffering in one way or another, or you're on the dogmatic atheist side of the argument that is just like really clinging to the idea that there is no God. And so it's just like meaningless and terrible. And I don't fall in either of those camps. So to me, it's funny. I had a feeling we would go here. When I was
Yeah.
watching that reel, I was like, oh, maybe, I don't know. I just had this feeling.
Yeah.
Um, so, some of these questions, I could probably just stop doing, um, what's the word? Uh, Mind going blank. These like, fuck, what's the word? I think it starts with a P. Like, uh,
Is it a noun, a verb?
that like I can stop,
Pretending?
like giving like a precursor to what I'm gonna say, like some sort of a,
Pre-talk, presupposition,
it might not be,
preamble.
might not
No.
start with a P. Yeah, preamble's
Okay.
pretty good though. But yeah, like I can stop.
Preaching? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
uh, Man, I wish I could think of it because I don't know how else to say it. Whatever. We'll just cut that
All right.
out.
Yeah.
Uh, what the hell was I saying? Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Um,
you remember. Okay.
yeah, so okay, so some of this is my direct experience. Some of it you could call a belief. I still would say that it's just a deep knowing that I have. But as I think we talked about before, it's like, uh, how is that different from some sort of dogmatic belief? And maybe it's not. And I guess I don't care.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's true, in the sense that I just have a knowing of it, but also in the sense that aligning my life with that knowing produces only positive results. And to me, that's an indicator of truth. It's not the only indicator, but it's a
Sure.
big one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that I believe that there is this like greater movement from a kind of second person God who is, it's not that it's just out there because it's also everywhere and in here. So there is no separation there. But because there's no separation, it can be dual and it can be non-dual. So it can be out there and it can be in here. But anyway, so I believe that there is this larger wisdom. You could call it God's plan,
Hmm.
but it may not be like a plan like a human would write down a plan, but it's like a trajectory towards greater truth, beauty, goodness, wholeness, God returning back to itself that through humans. Um, so that exists, but then we are also creators. And I mean that in like an energetic sense, in a manifestation sense, not just in a humans do stuff sense, not just in a physical reality sense, although
Yeah.
it all manifests through the physical. So I'm saying all of this because I do think there is this plan, this God's plan slash trajectory, um, but there's also freedom. There's also free will, freedom to create whatever we want to create. And um and so in that way I don't view like I just don't view it in that way where it's like God is responsible for the suffering or God should step in and end it. It's like we are God manifest as humans, and we have the freedom and ability and the I guess responsibility to own it and then create the world from there. And we haven't done that. We've like completely disowned it and made ourselves into victims of life as opposed to these empowered creators of it. And this is the result. Bunch of madness.
Hmm. So, do you feel like once we reclaim that power as creators, then we'll actually start to see less madness, more wholeness, more beauty, so on and so forth?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
was thinking about this the other day. It's like, you know, the doomsday clock, you know what that is?
Um, is there a clock on like the end of the world or what?
Yeah, I don't know like who manages it or where it's physically located or whatever, but there's this doomsday clock that they've been I think they probably created it around like during the Cold War or something. But it's meant to represent how close we are to nuclear destruction of the entire planet.
Right. Okay, okay. I think I've heard
And
that. Yeah.
and I think recently they moved it closer than it's ever been.
Great.
And like, first of all, who the fuck are they, and why do they get to decide this? Um,
Fair. Yeah, you're right.
but but I was just thinking about it. I was like, you know, I don't I don't know. I don't know. It's funny to me because it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. You have to be so detached, so disconnected from what's real to even consider ever launching a nuclear attack on anybody.
Well, but there, crazies are out there.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. But my point being that like if you the more in touch you are with the truth of reality, which includes the divine nature of it, you don't want to hurt anybody. You don't
Sure.
want to cause
Sure.
unnecessary harm to a person, an animal, a planet, the environment.
Well, yeah, but to be fair, I guess the idea is that the people who are in charge of nuclear weapons are not in touch with the divine.
Yeah,
Yeah. So then
absolutely.
it becomes a real threat, or it can be a real threat.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. But I was thinking about that in response to your question about, if we own who we are as creators, creator beings, then would the world move more towards wholeness,
Okay,
love,
okay.
truth, goodness, all of that?
Mm,
Absolutely. Yes, because like if I think about me being in a position of power, I would destroy all of those right now. There is no reason to keep those on the planet. None whatsoever. And the only like reason is, well, yeah, but what if someone else creates it? We've destroyed all of ours, and then someone else creates it, and then they have
right,
it, and they can keep.
right, right.
But that's like that's what we've been doing for centuries, this perpetual loop of fear, just like fear mongering and hate. And yeah, I mean it's appropriate to want to defend yourselves.
Yeah.
But I just think there are other ways, if we get into a discussion about like military tactics or whatever, I think there are other ways to do it. You don't fucking need nukes. Only psychopaths think that there should be nukes. That's my professional opinion.
Yeah. It's nuke disorder. I don't know. Nuke carrying disorder. I don't know.
Yeah, but this is like total tangent, but
Yeah.
I just think that I also, I mean, I thought this when I was a teenager that um about God, about the idea of God, that like for example, the idea of hell and sending people to hell. It's you know, when I was 15, probably, I was more forgiving than that God.
I agree.
And that says something, it's
Yeah.
like this
Well, did you want to role play? And I'll role play a Christian and try to be a Christian apologist. I'll
okay,
try to put on my go back 10 years ago.
sure.
This would be interesting. I don't know. I don't know if you've ever encountered have you encountered Christians and the okay, all right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not that okay, let me put on the hat. Okay. It's not that God isn't forgiving. God is infinitely forgiving, but he's also infinitely just. Like God is like maximally everything, right? He's maximally loving, he's maximally wise, but he's also maximally righteous and just. And so being a just God, like if there was a judge and he ruled that this person was a murderer or a thief or whoever, like a bad like a criminal, you wouldn't want that judge to just waive it and dismiss it. You would want that guy to be punished, right?
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you
Well,
would want, yeah,
ideally, I'd want him to be rehabilitated, but sure,
yeah,
separated from society.
right, right. There, he did a crime and or she, and there needs to be justice. So, in the same way, God is like the maximum, like the universal judge, right? And so God doesn't just see like our actions, but God also sees our thought life. So, Kevin, let me ask you, have you ever told a lie? Even a
Yes,
small one, a white lie. Okay, so what does that make you?
someone who's told a lie.
Right. So what do you call somebody who's told a lie?
I think you're trying to get me to say a liar.
Yes, yeah. Someone who tells a lie is a liar. Right. So okay, have you ever stolen anything, even something small like pirating?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like, what do you call someone who steals?
A thief.
A thief. Yeah, yeah. And here's the one that got me right. So in the Gospels, Jesus said, "You have heard it said, don't commit adultery, but I tell you, if you even look at a woman with lust, you've already committed adultery in your heart." So have you ever looked at a woman with lust?
Never.
Never, right? Yeah, never. So okay. So by your own admission, Kevin, you're a lying, thieving adulterer at heart, and you have to stand before a really just God, a judge who would not let any sin get away.
Wait,
And you have
wait,
to
wait,
stand before, yeah, go ahead.
wait, because you said at heart,
But it's the same thing, right? Because God looks at the heart.
but my heart didn't want me to do those things, except for maybe lust. It wasn't
But
my heart.
even if you're but even if you didn't want to do those things, the fact that you did them is sin. It's an offense towards God. It's like you can't say to a judge, "Well, I didn't want to steal it, but I just happened to steal it," you know?
Sure.
Yeah. So you have to stand before a just God, being a lying, thieving adulterer at heart. I mean, do you think God will let you into heaven knowing that? Why do you say that?
Well, okay, so this just gets into my deconstruction of the whole thing,
Okay.
which is, I mean, it's just so dualistic in thinking, and it's like taking a human system and then applying it to this being that we can't comprehend, right? And they know, they say that you can't comprehend God. It's beyond
Right.
all comprehension. Um, and yet they think that they have comprehended him and then can tell you everything that he would say and do because of the Bible.
Because because of the Bible, and the Bible is the revealed word of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then there's all the different interpretations of the Bible and changes that were made to it by humans. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to put on my apologist hat.
Sure.
I don't know how long you want me to go with this. Just say when I get too annoying, this is how I was.
Well,
Um,
actually, let's stop
okay, let's stop. Okay.
because I
Yeah.
also want to say that that I understand why people adopt that view. It's way, I think, easier to understand. Like it puts everything into perspective. And if you are coming from, especially if you're coming from a place of chaos, like nothing makes sense. I'm just suffering. I don't know how to live my life in a way that feels good. Then these sort of dogmatic principles are actually really helpful.
They can be. They can
Yeah,
be.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
for a lot of people they are,
Yeah.
at least up until a certain point.
Yeah. I think the problem is with Christianity and things like Christianity is that there's actually there's actually some like solid selling points because it's not like everything it's not like 100% just trash, right? Because if it was just like if you just knew it was just like genocide or something, that's so easy to condemn and be like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with that. But the fact that it's like a mixture of good and bad and that there's like some solid selling points. So I think people who really feel guilty gravitate towards Christianity because there's at the very even though I do think it's very much guilt driven and fear driven. There's also there's a hope of redemption and of forgiveness in the message. Of
Mm.
course, there's you kind of go through the cycle of forgiveness and then you sin and so you just have to go on the loop. But there's still that hope, right? There's still like oh like God forgives you, and so someone who's like very guilt ridden, it's actually a very appealing message. Like oh my gosh, the God of the universe forgives me. Wow. So how did we get into this? Forgot.
Something about
Yeah.
nuclear holocaust and
Bucher, yeah,
uh,
yeah,
psychopaths and whatever
yeah.
being
How,
creators.
how was my rhetoric?
Oh, it was pretty good.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's people create all sorts of rationalizations, and I mean, this is what I was doing in middle school, right? I was giving that kind of spiel, right? Trying to rhetoric my way into, okay, you've admitted you've done these things, and now you need Jesus, type of thing, right? I
Yeah.
almost got somebody to say the sinner's prayer, if you're familiar with that.
Hmm.
It's
I
like,
don't,
okay, well, I mean, that's where you ask Jesus in your heart, and you become born again, and you're forgiven, right?
ah,
So you could become saved, and you're no longer gonna go to hell, type of
yeah.
thing. Yeah, but yeah, that's kind of where I was at for a long time.
So I think maybe this connects back in a particular way to this inherent divine wisdom that is in, it's just like baked into reality. And and then also us as creators.
Yeah, I did want to ask, like, if we can go in this direction, if you want. How do we begin to reclaim our power as creators?
So I wasn't always this fucking out there, you know?
What
Um,
happened?
like now uh I'm into psychic stuff. I'm into channeling my spirit guides and like clairaudience and clairsentience and these different clairvoyant different clairs.
All the
Uh,
Claires. I
yeah.
love Claire. Yeah.
And and I'm into energy work and all of it to me is like it's actually that stuff, it's been more recent, but basically I've just accepted that it's just a part of reality because I can't deny it anymore. It's like my rational mind wanted to keep denying some of it, but I kept experiencing it. So what am I supposed to do? Um, so so I wasn't always this woo-woo. Uh, where I started, I did, I think I've mentioned before, I did always have some like deep knowing that God is real. And I felt that didn't come from a religious background at all, but I just felt that in my bones ever since I was a kid. And so there's that. But how I started to move in the direction of realizing that I am I'm a participant in this unfolding reality. I am shaping it with my actions, of course, but also with my consciousness and with how I relate to what's happening. And that I started to see that probably, I don't know, maybe when I was like 18, like after I started going to therapy. I was 16 when I started therapy. And I had a great therapist who I saw for 10 years. And through that process, and he wasn't, as far as I know, he wasn't particularly spiritual himself, but just psychologically, just coming to see how the way that I thought about things, just, you know, straight up cognitive therapy, the way that I thought about things created my feelings about things,
Hmm. Hmm.
which led me to behave in certain ways. And so just there, that's like a opening the door into creator God land.
Interesting.
Because at the very least, I could see I have actually an immense power here to shape my reality
Hmm.
and how I feel about it, how I engage with it, how I feel about it, which is
So would
huge.
you, yeah, yeah. So would you say like, I mean, like the first steps is really becoming aware of how we are relating to certain things, the beliefs, the thoughts, perspectives, and then understanding that we can actually change these perspectives and that will change the way we act and the way we feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean just simple examples of misperceptions. I think I came to know over time just how many misperceptions there were, which was it's endless basically. But like that somebody could say something or look at me a certain way, and I would, because of my own core beliefs, my own sense of myself, that I had a particular lens on, and that would cause me to receive it a certain way that wasn't at all how they intended it to be. They may not have even been thinking of me at all,
Right. Right.
but I would perceive it a certain way, and then it would, because I perceived it that way, it would impact me emotionally, and because it impacted me emotionally, that would like reinforce the belief that I had about it. And that right there is like, God, I don't even know, 80% of suffering.
Misperceiving
Yeah. Of
and
just,
then caught the loop.
yeah, I mean, in relationships, that's like such an incredibly huge source of conflict.
Yeah.
In the world, politics and culture, incredibly huge source of conflict.
Huge.
In religion, I mean,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
fucking everything. And so if I can begin to develop a clear seeing of that, which really just takes, I think, an openness and curiosity about what's real, the willingness to question everything.
Hmm.
Maybe that's, I made it sound simple.
Well, no, I think,
And everything.
and this is two different perceptions, right? I'm thinking from my vantage point, man, that's actually a lot to ask for.
Right.
And it could be difficult. Like I'm thinking Descartes, right? And that's um his whole endeavor, right? It's just question everything. And that's no easy task.
Yeah, which I think is in a big way, it's the foundation of psychotherapy. It's just about asking questions. It's about questioning literally everything. Oh,
It can
you,
get annoying, yeah, for sure.
yeah. Oh, you feel this way. Why do you feel that way? Oh, I don't know.
Right.
Oh, why don't you know?
Yeah, yeah, I know.
But
But
eventually you
yeah,
get somewhere.
hopefully. Yeah,
But
yeah.
but
If you
but
engage with it enough, yes.
yeah, but like even it doesn't have to be that annoying, but like it's uh developing it becomes a practice, which is to me it goes straight into a mindfulness practice. It's like just being open and curious about the nature of experience,
Yeah.
and am I seeing clearly? That's like the primary curiosity.
Hmm.
You look a little bit blurry.
Really?
Oh, maybe it's better. Oh, yeah.
Good know.
It's,
Okay.
um, I've been drinking a lot of fluids. I gotta.
Okay.
So yeah, developing a practice of and the willingness to uh, question everything, and and in particular, am I seeing clearly? And how do you know if you're seeing clearly?
That's the question.
Well, what I learned through mindfulness training and mainly through Pema Chodron, her work, is basically, if you're emotionally reactive, you're not seeing clearly.
Fair enough.
And I've heard some people try and argue against this, that there might be certain circumstances in which emotional reactivity is completely appropriate, which I think is true.
Yeah, I think there are instances of that.
But just because it's appropriate doesn't mean it's going to lead to clear seeing.
It could though.
That the emotional reactivity could oh, okay. Yeah, I could see.
Yeah,
Well,
like
why do you
if
say that?
yeah, because I'm thinking like an instance of a death in the family, right? It's understandable and normal, to be grieving. And I think maybe that could lead to seeing clearly about, your love for this person, perhaps the shortness of life and the randomness of life, and the fact that we need to be thankful for, all the days that we have here. Perhaps something like that, right? I'm just like shooting from my hip. I was gonna say shooting out of my ass. Uh, not doing that. Or if you find that there's some deep injustice, you're probably going to be angry, and that maybe it could help you. I'm not saying always, but it could help you be more passionate about a cause of righting wrongs, right? So I also understand that it could have the opposite effect, right? Where you're not being rational and you're being too biased. You're not seeing all sides of the coin or the or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what makes that distinction?
Of seeing clearly,
The distinction
like
between like the same event or the same emotional
right.
experience leading to either, yeah, a clear seeing and motivated
Y-
action, let's say, as compared to a distorted view and suffering.
I think it's an acceptance of what is an actual like deep emotional embodying of acceptance, and I would say cleaning out any deep emotional pain that could be influencing it. And you can have grief and have it be pure. And I hate to say that, for lack of a better word, pure, but it's a different quality of grief, right? Um, you can have anger, and it could be a more righteous anger, a more, not clouded by um deep emotional pain, or just, like deeply unconscious processes that you've cleared out, and you could still be angry at injustice. So that's what I would say. It's not so cut, um, and it's gonna sound like I'm speaking out of my ass, but you'll have to experience it in order to get it. Like I know I'm just saying words right now, but like if you actually had the tangible experience of your relationship shifting to that emotion, and like you'll still feel the emotion, but it'll just be different, and there'll be a clarity. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, well said. Mm, Yeah, so I was going to say something very similar, which is that having an emotion does not equal emotional reactivity.
Good. Yeah. Yeah.
Reactivity is a really specific experience, and you
Hmm.
can actually learn how to spot it in yourself. And that's different than, yeah, grieving a loved one. I actually kind of like the distinction between like pure grief or grief. What else? What would we call it? Adulterated grief. I don't know. But like grief that is it's infused with or informed by unconscious shit
Yes. Yeah.
that doesn't actually fully allow you to feel it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
I think this is a common thing with grief that I might talk about where you got to feel it fully, and then someone might say, I've been fucking feeling it for years.
Right.
What are you
Right.
talking about?"
Right.
And that's I understand. I understand you are in those years you are feeling grief.
Yeah.
Um, however, there is probably, I mean, it seems like almost all the time that if it's not um, if it's stuck, if it's causing suffering, then that means that there's something going on there inside of you that's actually not allowing you to feel it fully, to
Right.
let it take you over.
Yeah. 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 The way I distinguish it is there's difference between looping in a feeling that just creates suffering and then like actually accepting that which is, all, yeah,
Yeah.
what you were saying. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and that was something that stood out to me from what you said, that um, accepting what is. If you're accepting what is, you are not in emotional reactivity.
hmm,
To me, you are in acceptance and maybe feeling some emotions, which is different.
right.
Kind of like earlier, like maybe people could detect that when I'm talking about um, world leaders who are potentially like gonna press the button and nuke us all, that I get angry.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I don't feel reactive. I'm just like this, it's obvious to me. It is the obvious truth. And it feels clear and clean, and I'm fine with it. There's no inner conflict about it. It's just like, yeah, that's just how it is.
Right. Right.
Whereas if a certain politician's face appears on my phone screen and I have a visceral reaction of disgust, for example, uh, that's reactivity.
Right.
There's something going on there that can actually be addressed, and then you can not have that experience.
Right. Right. Would you say that there's like an authenticity to the emotion that makes it pure, I suppose?
Authenticity.
Yeah, like you're being authentic to and congruent with who you are. When you're angry about world leaders, it's just authentic you, authentic anger.
Yeah, I think it's true, but I think it gets into like a semantic
Okay.
distinction,
No.
uh, which I'm happy to get into, because it's something that I see. I actually haven't been seeing it as much lately. I don't know why, but it's out there. In the pop psychology world and just social media and whatever, that people talk about being me. Like you just be you. Just and 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 sometimes someone will like say something mean and then they'll be like, I'm just being me. And there's this idea that that's authenticity.
Hmm.
But to me, that's like being from your conditioning. You're accepting your skewed lens of perception as you, and then you're just like flaunting it. And so that's an important distinction because you can be like, let's say you're a direct person. You can be direct and not be an asshole.
Right.
You might still kind of come off as an asshole to some people, especially people who aren't used to that or don't like that style of being. Um, but there's a distinction there. It's like you can just this person's style and them being authentically them is direct. It's not mincing words, and that's fine. But there's some, I don't know where the line is exactly, but there is a line there where it's like basically it's skirting responsibility for the
Hmm.
impact that you have
Hmm.
just by saying, I'm just being me. It's like,
Yeah.
well, you suck.
You are a dick. Yeah. So.
And yeah, so authenticity, it's like, plenty of people would say they authentically hate Donald Trump
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
that's
That's fine.
that's what's authentic to them. And who am I to argue against that? But well, I'm Kevin and I will argue against it. So in that to me it's well, I tend to think that hate is not authentic. Like hate isn't like a pure thing. It's just um it's a collection of misperceptions.
Interesting.
Ang
Interesting.
Anger can be pure for sure, but hate, I don't, in myself, I've never seen hate lead to clear seeing.
Hmm.
It only leads to muddled seeing and suffering.
Hmm.
So to me, so if it only leads to muddled seeing and suffering, then it's conditioning.
Right. Yep.
So having an authentic disagreement or even distaste for somebody or for uh, their ideals, their values, their actions in the world, I think that that's real and true. But again, it's this capacity to recognize what does reactivity feel like? And it can be really subtle. It can be super obvious, but especially once you've engaged with this practice for years, then it just becomes more and more and more subtle.
Right.
But yeah, that we can identify in ourselves what reactivity feels like, and then we can get curious about what beliefs am I holding that drive that reactivity, which is preventing me from seeing reality clearly.
And to try to tie it back to the original topic, sort of. Um, I do think surrender to this wise and loving part of ourselves can help us see clearly and to help us, yeah, it helps us see clearly, which is why it's important.
So what do you think, and maybe for yourself, but
Mm.
just in general too, what what has or does get in the way of surrender?
I mean, having a Christian past definitely does. No, first off, I think that if you don't know what s- surrender or something like surrender feels like, then I think you're gonna have a very difficult time. Like if you don't know the mechanism of letting go, which is not just an intellectual thing, right? That could be a huge hindrance. So that's number one is being too much in your head, intellectualizing, rationalizing, and uh I hate to say avoiding feeling because it's not necessarily like a conscious thing, right? It's like a very unconscious defense mechanism. It's also a skill at the same time. Like you have to actually build up the skill for feeling. So that would be one. Um, the need for control is obviously a big thing, which is interesting because I actually think so. There's a paradox here, right? Because we need to have a sense of control. We need to have a sense of if I bring my, hand up to, with the cup with the coffee and I drink the coffee, like it's not gonna just disappear or like, like my hand's just gonna stop moving. Like that would be really, really terrible. So we do have a paradox here, but I think when I say the want or the need for control, it's more of a lack of it. Wanting implies lack.
Hmm.
And so it's much like if you're too needy with a relationship, there's a wanting and needing, and you'll actually push away the very thing that you're trying to get, ironically. So understanding that this goes back to the first thing where you really have to start sensing what that feels like. What does lack of control feel like, or the wanting of control, or the wanting for safety or security or love? What does that feel like? And contrasting that with, well, what does like fulfillment of that feel like? And getting really good at that. Then it's being able to communicate with the part of you that can let go. Because if it's just going back to intellectualizing, right? If you're just communicating on the conscious level, it'll forever be stuck.
Hmm.
You'll just loop there. But if you're starting to sense these different parts of you in your body, you know what the lack feels like. You can kind of imagine what the lack of lack feels like, and you can start to communicate with the part of you that can let go, and then you can feel that. Uh, that will go a long way. Yeah, because surrender is definitely something that needs to be experienced. Yeah,
Do you have any ideas about? I have some other thought about something you said. I'm going to try and hold on to it. But do you have any
sure.
ideas about, as practitioners, how we can support somebody with creating that experience of surrender?
Yeah. Yes. Um, yeah. Yeah, so first of all, Um, what is your experience now without surrender? That's what I would ask. Like, what are you experiencing right now? Like, why do you want to feel surrendered or to experience this?
which is kind of highlighting the opposite,
Yeah, yeah,
which
and kind
might
of also like tapping into motivations. Yeah, absolutely.
which might be maybe we can define it as what's the opposite of surrender? Is it grasping for control, resistance, something
Yeah,
like
yeah. And then I would ask them to describe that in more detail from their point of view. So if they say, "Well, it feels like I'm in resistance," I might ask, like, "Well, how do you know you're in resistance? Like, as you are knowing that you are in resistance, how are you knowing that?" Because there's a particular experience that they're just mainly unconscious about. So I'm trying to like draw the unconscious out. And so I would ask them, well, okay, as we're being aware of this resistance, maybe there's some kind of metaphor that comes up. Maybe it's an image, maybe it's a sound, a song, a memory, whatever it is, or just simply a sensation. Um, let's expand that, right? Let's really lean into that. Describe it for me. So the more they describe, we're like pulling like a string. So now we're getting more about what the unconscious is saying. So now that we have the unconscious representation of what they're experiencing, now we're able to contact the subconscious mind and we can flip it, right? So like, okay, great. Now that we've described that, what do you want this to be instead? And they might say, oh, I want it to be the color white. I want it to be a garden. I want it to be a waterfall. I don't know. Whatever it might be. It's great. And could you imagine it? If you can't imagine it, can you think of whatever that thing you just said is? Like, just think of it or pretend that it's happening. And I think that's like we're opening the window there. They can start to communicate with their subconscious, and that will open up the door to an experience of surrender. Like, if surrender was a metaphor, what would it be? That's kind of how I do things.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you use like metaphor, imagery, um that sort of thing. And then like changing the well so what I heard was like identifying the experience, which was resistance, and what it feels like, and then associated imagery or visualization or metaphor, and then taking the metaphor and changing it to what you want it to be and what you want it to feel like,
Yes.
to then open up the feeling of surrender, the or the associated feelings and the experience of surrender.
Yes. That's mainly how I do it. That's one way. Um, Another way of doing it and like how I learned was trial and error and just like brute force. Um, but it takes a lot of practice. I'm just gonna say that up front. Okay, let me scratch that. For some people, it will take a little bit more practice than others. Some people will just get it, you know. They're just they're primed, they're ready, they are more in touch with their emotions, whatever. Some people need a little more work. But as long as you're willing to put the work in. So I brute forced it and I would just keep on trying to ask my body if I could let it go and then trying to sense if that happened and then wondering, is anything happening? I don't know if this is working. Oh crap. Let me try asking again. And but like but I just like kept doing it. And eventually you start to kind of sense here and there, like, oh yeah, I actually kind of think am letting go. And then, oh no, yeah, I think I'm actually not letting go. Okay. And then so on and so forth. So it might take a little bit for some people.
And I'm curious if you agree with this. In my experience, there there isn't one formula to follow for moving from resistance to surrender, that it is very dependent on the moment. And so sometimes it could be like, for example, like like dance or a movement practice or something, like opening up the body, and
Mm-hmm.
that that can lead me into a state of openness and surrender. But other times I might try and do that and it doesn't have the same effect. And instead I might need to talk about it. Um,
Fair. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. First off, I think that's amazing that because I don't do a whole lot of work with the body. That's something I need to look into more
mm.
and grow into. Um, but yeah, you're right. I think if you try to formalize it and it goes back to like wanting control and trying to get an outcome, if I just do this thing, X will happen. X did not happen. God damn it, try harder, right? But yeah, it is like it's context specific, it's person specific, it's moment specific. Uh, yeah, yeah.
And that leads me back to it was the third point that you had made earlier about how to uh how to move towards surrender, or what gets in the way, how to work with it, all that stuff. That you were saying connecting with the part of you that surrenders. Like I think that's how you
Oh,
said.
that's a good question. Yeah. Now that you word it like that, I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of better. Yes, I like that.
Isn't that how you worded it?
I think I was trying to word it a different way. But
Oh,
yes. Yeah, the part of me that surrenders. Or the part of me that can surrender. Let's say that.
so I take people through the DBT material, dialectical behavior therapy, for people that don't know, which is a mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. I don't do, there's like a strict DBT structure for doing DBT with an individual, and I don't do that. I never have done that, but I did run a DBT skills group for 7 years.
Oh, I
And
did not know this.
yes, yeah, yeah. When I worked at the wellness center in Long
Huh.
Beach.
Yeah,
So this was like most of that was pre-licensure for me.
got
So
it.
I was, it was just purely a skills group. There was not clinical stuff going on,
Got it.
um, until I graduated. But yeah, so I became very familiar with the material, and I like a lot of it. Mainly, there's a lot of it I don't like, but what I like about it is that going through the material leads to really interesting conversations. Um, I think maybe especially for me, because I have a lot of background in mindfulness and Buddhism, and so I can expand on some of the bullet points presented in the handouts, in a way that it's not in the handouts. Um, Yeah, because as I like to say it, Marsha Linehan, the creator of DBT, that she took Buddhism and then made it digestible for white people.
I love it. Yeah. I mean,
Western.
that's pretty much what I'm doing for myself, right? I'm just culturally appropriating it. So,
Yeah, and turned it into a therapy, and it's wonderful. I actually really like it for the most part. Anyway, my favorite thing in DBT probably is radical acceptance. This concept of radical acceptance, which I'm bringing up because to me, it's very much linked to surrender. They go hand in hand together. And I'm trying to think what direction to go. Okay. Um, so first, I'll just describe what radical acceptance is briefly, uh, as brief as I can, because normally I have like 4 hours worth of conversation about it. Um, that so radical acceptance is not just like your your everyday simple acceptance. Um, to me, the radical part is actually that it's non-dual, and they don't put this in the material.
I was gonna ask. It's like, hmm.
They don't specifically say non-dual, but they do specifically say things like accepting with your whole being, or like accepting with your whole, actually they don't say being, but your whole body, mind, soul.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, close enough, you know. Um, so there's so much I could say about it. But essentially, to me, it's like the complete absence of resistance. That's what the experience of radical acceptance is. And so that means, like, for example, that there may be something in my life or something in the world that I want to change. And in the practice of radical acceptance, I would be in acceptance of the thing itself, just being as it is, and I would be in acceptance of my desire to change it. So there's like a
Interesting. Yeah.
fundamental paradox, which is at the heart of DBT,
Right.
the dialectical part. What that means is the ability to hold seemingly contradictory opposites at the same time.
Right. Right.
So the desire to, for example, accept myself the way I am, but also the desire to better myself.
Yes.
And so with radical acceptance, you can embrace all of it
Mm.
and not be in resistance to all of it, even resistance.
Right. Right.
Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up is because when you said, which I still think you said, but however you said it, that that part of it is connecting with the part of you that surrenders. And this is something that I talk with people about when it comes to radical acceptance, is that it's that you don't do it. Like your personality self is not the one who is capable of radical acceptance or surrender. That you can yeah, you can try all day long, but if you are trying from that place, something that I think you said, it's like you you're coming from a forceful place. You're trying to brute force it in a way that is not probably going to work. It could if you stick with it long enough, I guess. But um, yeah, so that you know what we're what does surrender. Actually, I want to take a step back here. That I think of acceptance or surrender not as something that we do, but it's actually an inherent aspect of being. So like to even say that we have to accept things, it's a little bit too much. It's a little too active because it's not that you have to move from a state of not accepting to accepting. It's that acceptance is your true nature and you just open into it.
Right.
Our true nature does not have beef with reality because it is reality.
That's contentious.
Is it?
Can you say it again?
Our true nature does not have beef with reality because it is reality.
Right.
Yeah, and that means the whole thing. It means that our true nature doesn't have beef with itself for having beef with itself. You can have beef with reality. It's fine. It just might cause suffering. So if you want to suffer, then go for it.
Hmm.
What's contentious about it?
Oh, I think it's saying that your nature is reality. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think people generally say that.
Oh.
I think they would say my nature is an aspect of reality, but is distinct from reality.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it might be that too. Distinct from reality. What is there something that's separate from reality?
Well, I would say it's not that it's like it's obviously a part of reality, right?
Mhm.
Um, but not the totality of it. It is not reality. It might be a part of it, right?
Oh, so
That
there's that idea is that there are aspects of reality that are outside of the true nature.
yeah.
Oh. So, I mean, I think that there are aspects of reality that aren't in alignment with the true nature, but they're still made from it. It's still inherently infused in all of it.
Mhm.
So that would be my distinction. You know, like terrible acts, for example, of abuse or violence. That to me, that's not in alignment with true nature. But true nature is not absent from it. Is that true?
I don't know. uh, let's go back to the being. So I think that's important. I think framing and understanding surrender and radical acceptance as not necessarily some kind of action that you take, but a part of who you are. And that might seem like semantics, but the way that we frame and understand things and word things can also have a lot of power. And I do think there's an important distinction there.
Yeah. I'm just taking a moment because I don't know. I'd like for being to direct this conversation.
Mm,
I don't want to get too heady about it.
right.
It just goes completely silent in my head. So what I love about this is that, well, it's a whole being situation. You know, there's so much discussion in the psychotherapy world about somatic approaches, cognitive approaches, and just all these different levels, addressing all these different levels of being. And some people really put an emphasis on certain ones over others. And to me, it's like it's all of it. It's just it's a whole being situation. So to be in surrender, I think one of the reasons why it's, I guess, so difficult to do is because we're conditioned to be from the mind, or
Yeah.
to live life from the mind. And the mind is dualistic. Surrender is non-dualistic.
Interesting. I wouldn't have worded it like that. Okay. Surrender is non-dualistic.
It's it's always like, I want to say fun for some reason. It's not fun when you're in it, but it's at least funny to think about moments when I'm in resistance and all the shit I try and pull to get out of it and how it doesn't work. The harder I try, it's a Chinese finger trap thing. The harder I try,
Mm-hmm.
the tighter it gets.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's how you know that you're trying to apply a dualistic framework to the non-dual reality. You're trying to force it to be something it's not.
Yeah.
And it's so like beautiful. It's so beautiful and just an amazing part of life, an amazing part of reality that there isn't a rule book to it, that it's like you just keep trying until you finally give up the trying, and then oh my God, there's surrender on the other side of it. You're not even trying to do it anymore.
Isn't that funny? It's when you're actually trying for something, that's when you don't get it. And then when you stop trying, that's when you get it.
And this is why I love the discussion of flow, about flow states, and most of the time flow states are applied to art and sports, I'd say. Um, and but when I think about surrender, radical acceptance, and mindfulness, it's like basically applying a flow state to just living your life. The same exact principles apply.
Right. Right.
You're trying really hard to make the shot, then you're less likely to make it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, it's not about not trying, because if you're not trying, you're not going to take the shot. That's the
And
non-dual nature of it.
all right. And I think that's what can be confusing at times. It could trip people up.
Yeah.
Trip me up.
Yeah. So if I'm in resistance, my tendency would be um, to numb out. It's like I don't like that feeling. So my conditioning would try and push me to binge watch TV, or scroll on my phone, or drink, do something to numb out, change the state. I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, well, that's kind of like doing nothing. It's like I'm trying not to try. And this
Would
comes, huh?
which leads to suffering, right?
Yeah.
Trying not to try. Hmm.
Yeah. So when I'm working with people around surrender, a lot of it centers around seeing clearly the resistance that they have to their own resistance. That if you can let go of that resistance, then you can just let the resistance play out until it stops. Because I think the trap for most of us is getting stuck in resisting resistance. Well, first we're stuck in just resistance, but then once you become aware that you're resisting, then you immediately get stuck in resisting that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So instead, there's like a different orientation where it's like, oh, okay, I'm in resistance right now. I don't know how to get out of resistance. Let me try some shit, see how it goes. And then as you're trying shit, you either feel, like you said something earlier about knowing the feeling of resistance compared to the feeling of surrender, that you can feel the resistance in what you're doing. If I'm doing yoga or something, then I might notice, oh, I'm coming from a place of resistance. I'm trying to break the resistance with the yoga.
Mm-hmm.
So let me stop that and go try something else. Or just stop thinking about it. Sometimes that works. But all of this to say that coming back to this idea that I don't do surrender or radical acceptance, that there is an aspect of my being, which I would say is the foundation of my being, my divine nature, is there already, all the time. It's just my mind, my conditioning, my personality self that experiences the absence of it. So if I can relax that in some way, then I just open up to the surrendered reality that's already there.
So it's a relaxing and opening up.
Yeah. Trying to think, is there anything else there? Relaxing, opening up. I almost want to say like homing in on, like, at least from the perspective of mind, it seems like I actually have to, not all the time, but definitely sometimes, that I have to home in, I have to home in on it.
Hmm.
Like, because otherwise my mind just stays preoccupied with stuff, just content, and like content in my mind, content of the TV, whatever. It just keeps filling up the space. I actually have to like concentrate isn't the right word, but it's just like take the focus of my awareness from here. I mean, really it's like expanding it, but tuning in. It's like a tuning in.
Would it also be accurate to say it's like a shifting of your awareness?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think of it like my awareness is like narrowed in on something,
Mm.
like whatever I'm thinking about or trying to accomplish or whatever. It's narrowed in on that, and I'm, I guess it is relaxing and opening that and shifting the focus of my awareness, but it's like it's just expanding my awareness so that whatever I was focused on, it could still be there, but it just becomes it's just like a small dot in this bigger space.
Mm.
But I do think a big part of it, which a lot of people these days are getting more into, um, though they might not frame it exactly like this, is that we have to teach the body how to relax
Yeah,
in order
I'd
to
agree with it.
like be there more often.
Absolutely.
So it's not just a mental thing.
Yes. Yeah. I actually think that's very key. Because when I was starting out, honestly, it was even hard to relax and will. It was difficult. But with practice, I eventually got there.
Mhm. To relax at will, is that what you said?
Yeah. To imagine, you could say it's my using my imaginal faculties or imagination faculties, or it's just the mechanism of surrender or letting go. It's just a different, it's like a different muscle. That's the best way I can describe it. And now it's like I'm now exercising a very similar muscle. Like to me, surrender is like next door to letting go. It's very, very similar, but just slightly, at least in my personal experience, currently, it's slightly different, but very similar. Um, and yeah, you could only get all the little nuances by practicing.
I was just thinking about, mm, I mean, I guess it's like forming an attachment to surrender or which, it might as well, to me, it might as well be interchangeable with enlightenment or awakening. Um, but that again, it's like the mind has ideas about how it thinks things are supposed to be and how they're supposed to go. But the divine wisdom has a different, potentially at least, it moves in a different way. It might line up with my expectations sometimes, but certainly not all the time. And so, sometimes, like even now, at this point in my life, there are certain places, certain aspects of my experience or my life where I tend to be in resistance. And I would like to get rid of those. I'd like to just be surrendered all the time because I actually know that it just feels better. But maybe maybe this is where I'm still learning too, but it's like the ebb and flow of waves in the ocean. Maybe the bigger picture, it's not dualistic. So If it was dualistic, then it would be about surrender or not surrender. But this bigger non-dual surrender is surrendered to the experience of not surrender. And maybe there has to be an ebb and flow there to deepen into that experience over time or something. But also I feel like there's a divine timing for things.
Hmm. Do you think that maybe the divine timing can change based on our subconscious beliefs?
Probably. That sounds right. Yeah, and so that's that bringing it full circle, man. That's uh that spot where it's like we are creators of reality and of our lives. And there may also be this bigger flow of divine wisdom that that supersedes my individual creative power. I don't know if that's exactly the way I want to put it, but something like that. And so maybe sometimes there's like a divine timing in the sense that no matter what I do right now, this thing will not change because it's not meant to in this moment. Um, but then other times, maybe I'm getting in the way of it changing, and it actually wants to change right now.
Yeah.
And I will say, as we're probably getting near the end of this conversation, uh, I do want to say this, which I think we'll have a bigger conversation about later, that to me, psychedelics are one of the most powerful teachers of surrender.
Yes. Yeah. I've been there. That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah, but it's certainly possible to uh, cultivate this capacity or open up into it without psychedelics. However, it's just to me, it's like a crash course. It's just like you're gonna be thrust into a situation. I'm talking high dose psychedelics. You're gonna be thrust into a situation where you do not have control, and you will be confronted with everything in you that wants to grasp for it.
Yeah.
And then potentially, I mean, you'll either just be miserable the whole time, or you learn to let go and surrender. And then it becomes something else.
Psychedelics fun time.
And, I will continue to repeat that I don't recommend them lightly, uh, but it's undoubtedly an incredibly powerful tool. And I think it creates, what I'm saying is it creates the direct experience of it. So if you don't have any context for what surrender is or how it feels, that's one path where you could discover it. And I think that
Yeah.
is probably where I first discovered it.
Oh,
I started
interesting.
pretty young, so
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I think we're complete.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you next time.